Hi. Welcome back to Sword Buddy.
He's Troy. He studies EI.
He's Justin. He studies Italian fencing.
We. Alright, now that we've gotten these terrible...
That needs to be the intro from now on. We need to cut that section.
We.
And that's what it is.
He's Troy. He studies Japanese EI. Because there's other kinds of EI. He's Justin. He studies Italian Rapier. We.
We are professionals.
We are hopeless, is what we are.
Welcome. Justin, how was class tonight? You told me you learned something.
I did. We learn something just about every time we go to class.
We'd hope so.
Today, we were learning a double feint attack. And I realized in drills that there's more than one way for the defender to attempt to parry the second feint. So, how it functions is, if we are fencing on the same hand, just point your hand at me, I want to feint to the outside, which is over here.
Okay.
And if you try to parry that, then I'm going to point to your back leg. And there's two ways you can parry that. In our standard stage 2 or our standard stage 7. And depending on what you do, depends on which way I cavazione, which is to rotate my blade around yours, and then lunge in to finish.
So come over here.
So
here,
I attack
here.
I point back there.
So if I do 2, or if I do 7,
I would continue the way I'm going.
if I do 2,
I go back the other way.
if I do 4,
If you do 4, if I'm going to go low,
if I do 4 and just bring my hilt low,
I hadn't thought about that. No one tried that.
because that's what I think. If you're telling me wheeling either way, what if I just drop my hilt? Because if that's where your hilt's going, one of the talks we had earlier, if I just match yours, I just bring it lower. The
thing that I got really good at it because of is after I do the feint to the outside of their hand, I start watching what their hand does before I give this feint.
Okay.
Yeah. So, I'll start my attack over here. I'll start to parry. And now I'm watching the hand as I set up this feint.
So you see where they're wheeling.
And that's what I had to point out to this, 20-year sport fencer. He was like, why are you getting this? And I'm like, so watch my hand after you do the feint to the outside. And he was like, oh, there's 2 ways to parry this. And I'm like, yeah, I just realized that too. And so I showed that to Tim, my instructor, and he went, oh yeah, there is 2 ways to parry that. And I was like, yeah!
I'm proud of you.
I'm proud of me. That felt pretty good.
That's awesome, though.
And then fencing was good. I totally ran out of gas in the bouts. And then I got to Tim. And so I feel hungry and I'm lightheaded because I'm so tired and there's nothing in my stomach and I'm just running on water. And still I was avoiding getting hit most of our bouts. I wasn't getting any touches, but I was surviving.
Yeah.
In that tired state, my body is just no.
Autopilot.
Survive.
Autopilot.
Survive. You're not going to hit me. I'm too tired to attack you, but you're not going to hit me.
I love that feeling. Just where it's just nope.
Reflex.
Nope.
Yeah.
Nope. I don't want to get you, but you're not going to get it. Nope. It feels good.
How was class for you?
Oh, I was really lucky today. I was bad in that I took a nap before, so I was a couple minutes late.
Okay. But you still made it.
But I also was the only student that showed up tonight. So I got an entire class to myself. I got a private lesson.
That's amazing.
For 2 hours. And it was just working on brand new forms that I had not worked before. Justin. Because this is something we had to work with for stage combat and our training with that.
Yeah.
Really with anything, is that once you learn the rules of something, and it's okay, now we're teaching you techniques and situations to break all of these said rules. So it's like I have to figure out how to go against all the programming I've spent the past 5 years working on drilling into me. And it's not like it's counterintuitive or that it's wrong, but it's just
It's a different style.
It's just so specific. The situations require that, like, there's one specifically that's, for me, the most difficult out of the entire set. Oh, man, I forgot what it was called. That's something I gotta get better on remembering the technique names. But essentially, there is, wherever you're sitting in a certain position, at the end of your toes, above you is a shelf that you have to shoot out your right leg and then pull your left leg underneath you to line your hips up, while also drawing your sword over your like you're in front of your left shoulder, so you're not drawing on it, because you have to lean over into it so you can get below the shelf. And then also, after you pull your left leg in front of you, lean your right, or shoot your right leg out to also pull yourself away from the wall so that the arc of your sword coming over you doesn't hit it. So, it's really...
Sword limbo?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Do a head cut under the bar.
You have to first get yourself under the bar, then while drawing your sword, without cutting yourself, then get it behind you and be clear enough from the wall to do a full powered head cut. Or straight overcut. And it is... Yeah, well, the thing is, it's like, you have to have someone watch you to tell you if you made it or not. Because they can keep the distance. Or they can show you where you ended up.
Question.
Yes.
Why not set up a shelf?
This is another thing that I have to learn. Is that this is a situation in which...
That's a new siren.
Just some sirens, folks.
I think they're honking. Yeah, it's probably a fire engine honking to get through the intersection.
Yeah.
Back on track. Why not set up a shelf? This episode
brought to you by H2O.
Our sponsor.
I remember the situation was explained to me. I have since forgotten it. I know it has something to do with being in the house of a lord, a daimyo's house.
Okay.
So this is where a place where samurai would sit is this kind of like entranceway in like waiting or something. So if you were a samurai in that situation and you were being attacked, you would have to know how to get out of this place effectively to then commit an attack.
While maintaining your offense.
Yeah. But that's the most difficult one for me so far in the set. The other two, well, the first one, and that's like number 6 or 7. I don't know. Excuse me.
Bless you.
Whew. Apologize.
Bless you.
But it was a really good class. I gotta just have a private lesson all to myself. Gotta catch up about some of the other dojos. They're doing well. A lot of them are doing appointment based because a lot of our members are elderly. Mm-hmm. I think I mentioned this before.
Yeah, you have.
But they're doing well. Other dojos are starting to open up that can start to do classes now. Things are going well. Other than that,
I have a topic I would like to discuss between the two of us.
Sure.
Defensive actions.
Okay.
So my school, at least the way it is taught to me, is that the mentality is purely that this is a self-defensive art. It is not intended to be aggressive. There are very elegant attacks that can come with it, and very aggressive things that can happen in it, but it is best done whenever you are completely calm and composed.
Okay.
And it's a lot of parry, 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 thrust, I win.
Mm-hmm.
but sort of the image that I think Western cinema culture has created, maybe even Eastern has contributed, is that the use of the katana is a very aggressive and offensive-based martial art, and that there isn't a need to parry because you should be doing it right every time. It's almost like a rock, paper, scissors, and whoever's attack lands because it was the right thing to do in that moment is the victor.
I would say you're onto something, but I was also going to immediately say you're wrong as well, because while, yeah, there's that situation of if you have two samurai going at each other, they're both going to commit attacks they have to fully commit to, much like in a fencing match. And this is where I think the similarity is that there's 2 or 3 strikes. A lot of our defensive actions are between our offensive motions. So, there goes the water, our sponsor. No.
It's okay. There's one over here.
Speaking of which,
Brought to you by a cute dog sticker.
my first cut, I draw a horizontal slash. If by some chance my enemy is going to come striking at me, my next move, my tip comes to the center, and as I get ready for an overhead strike, my entire side is blocked while I'm set up to cut. So the whole system is like that. Throughout all of the cuts, there's like this shield that is kind of in place, which is why I find which is why I think there's that similarity in your style of I'm on the inside, I'm on the outside, I'm over here, kind of.
It is more of I'm in this guard, 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 I'm in this guard. It's like a high hanging 3, which is supposed to be like perpendicular to the ground, or like a withdrawn guard is what they call it. That's how you see Captain Hook or sport fencers. They're always like the elbow is attached to the hip, and it's mostly wrist, and they have to reach really far in order to get their thrusts. But we are very much I have a needle that is a shield, and I'm going to stick it in front of me and my opponent, and depending on how they morph theirs, I will move my blade so that their point cannot reach me in a straight line.
Mm-hmm.
What I'm hearing from you, though, is that in between the transitions between your cuts, take care of your defense, as long as you do it at the right time.
Yes, and ideally, remember, this is supposed to be against other single katanas.
Yes.
This would not work as well against a rapier, because, I think we talked about this before, when the Portuguese first came to Japan, they defeated the samurai in duels multiple times because the samurai, they didn't know how to deal with the double-edged blades of these long fencers. They didn't have the kind of steel to make that happen.
Interesting.
Yeah, it was only until the samurai added a back sharp part of their blade they were able to fight them. So it's a difference in that there's a lot more flexibility in that reach and that mobility that the fencers have that the katana doesn't. Because mine are between arcing slashes. I have a few thrusts, and that's a technique that I feel like I'm finally starting to really get my teeth into, because I figured out where to place my hands to have a structured thrust, which is really different. Oh my god. Sorry, go ahead.
It's like just how things developed in different parts of the world.
Yeah.
That's what's so interesting to me, because I'm sure there is some European art that if you try to put it up against that, will be totally destroyed.
Yeah.
Be totally destroyed, no contest every time.
Because this is, regardless of its reach with its cuts, it's an extremely strong...
I was with you.
Yeah. Troy speaks, take 2. It's an extremely strong blade for being folded again and again and again. It's also flexible.
Yeah.
But this will... I really want to teach you that overhead, just single strike down, because once you get it, you're like, oh my god, this is so powerful. I feel like I could just knock anything away.
So I was able to take 2 classes for the sword to sword class, which is the long sword and other various martial styles within the Lichtenauer school that meets on the same days that we do. They also meet on Friday, Saturday. I was able to take a class of each long sword, arming sword, and rondel. And my longsword class, they'd had me hold a 15-pound wooden bowling pin and do the martial cuts with that to feel how when you do it right, it moves your body for you. And as long as you have the arm structure to support it, it doesn't matter what gets in the way. And it was just doing this X pattern for 2 hours was oh my god, I would kill someone.
Yeah.
Step in front of me. Because what they're telling me is that everything you learn martially is comprehensible. Is cumulative knowledge.
Yes.
We hear Bruce Lee talk about it, where he's be water. Whatever situation you find yourself in, fill that situation. And become naturally within that shape. That's what he means by become water. Have all these different things that you can use at any point. And whatever the situation, know how to adapt to it. Speaking of situations, go ahead and say something.
Just because you brought it up, and it's a very similar thing because I've been trying to get further into my study and research, because I've been trying to live by, or just remind myself of Himoto Musashi's 21 rules that reminded me of things don't have preference in weapons. Do not have preference. It should be the mentality, and it should all be the same.
Yeah. And that's what the longsword guys were telling me about arming sword. And whenever they were teaching me, is the 4 basic joints is shoulder, elbow, wrist, and the 4th is your fingers. And it occurred to me that's true because I fence by changing the position of my fingers and wrist more than any other part of my arm. But once I pick up a short one-handed broadsword, it becomes much more elbow, and the shoulder gets much more activated, and it is actually better if it stays almost in a hammer grip. Because if you do this, when you cut with that heavy blade, when you make contact, you're going to torque your wrist up, and you can do damage by ripping this tendon. So if you maintain the hammer grip whenever you land, and this is strong and rigid, it kind of doesn't matter what gets in the way.
Interesting.
It's just going to move it. These cuts are the parries in this system. At least how it seems with the one class that I took.
Interesting.
I will go back to take classes all through December.
And you have to report back.
I shall.
You must.
There is something I want to close on, so go ahead.
There is a very important part of our system, or just concept in EI called Teniuchi, which just means it's correct hand, or it's basically correct hand placement.
Okay.
But it's when cutting. I think I've talked about this before, but with a lot when I worked with fencing for stage work and everything, it's all in these 3 fingers: the thumb, the index, and the middle finger. And while they are important for holding it in place, it's when making a cut to get Teniuchi, you have to have your ring and pinky fingers completely relaxed. What?
Keep going.
Sorry. And then I can't do it here. Just
You'll
come
kill
on.
me.
Just go straight to the mic. But it's keeping them completely slack and relaxed until the right moment to... man. What's the right word? I guess just engage them or just curl them. But it's like wringing your hands like a rag in your hands. It's not like going straight down. I feel like I want to show my hand placement because it's like...
I mean, I can see
it's like this. It's with the base of my thumbs. I'm pushing with that. And I can't lock my elbows because that'll break my elbows. But the whole motion and ringing is what really drives all the power.
Interesting.
It feels really weird and uncomfortable.
Okay.
At first, but it's a part of that being a swordsman of getting the flexibility in your wrists.
Yeah, getting used to it.
And it's different than every sword.
Because even then, in that time set that these are being used, it was not a practical weapon. It was just what they had that was the most effective, that was rare to get, and if you had one, it was like having a fully automatic rifle today.
Yeah.
Yeah. The thing I want to close on, because we actually have I think we have similar philosophies on it. We talked about it. The moment. We've talked in the past about, and we've mentioned Musashi's philosophy that the battle is won before it is ever fought. And I think it can still be decided within those first few seconds of the fight beginning before a blow has been thrown. And you've mentioned doing this in partner, where you're watching your partner, the points of your partner that you're watching, and depending on how they move, knowing when to go.
Mm-hmm.
That moment in Fabris we call the pulse, because it is a super quick tennis match. I send something. If he sends nothing back, I can send something again and win. I send something, he sends something. I send something, he sends something. I send something, he doesn't do anything, I go.
It's like a rubber band.
Kind of. Yeah.
It's like...
I guess a rubber band would be a better way of, like, I can stretch, and if he almost like a magnet. If I'll go, he'll go, I'll go.
Yeah.
And it will look like that. But there's a moment when if he goes and I don't do anything and he sees the opening, he can get me before I can even move. There's a moment. Do you have anything? I feel like you've mentioned it, or at least you've brought it up without even realizing that that's what you're talking about.
We talked about this recently off the Sword Buddies, but it was a concept that a lot of practitioners don't really embody or see. We talk about it a lot. We have to envision techie. We have to envision our enemy.
Yes.
We have to, one of the things that always sets the timing of your cuts is it's at the last possible moment, but it's based off of what they do. Yeah, because like for setting up, following in our paired forms, whenever they go up, it's like I'm not gonna go and I'm not gonna follow you until I see this go above your head. Once I see that, I know I can just get your wrist, and now the fight's over. And it's based off of their timing and their movement, and it's being flexible in that moment enough to get in there and take that advantage. But
But that's
I think that's what we're talking about.
It's like boom. They haven't sent whatever they're doing in enough time that I know that's the moment.
Yeah.
Bam, you're mine.
And it's at that point, it really does kind of come down to who's faster. And there's a poem. There's a poem of one of the forms, of one of the advanced sitting forms, where it's like both will see the flash of lightning, but only one will be there to hear its thunder. Yeah. Something like that. It's it's really pretty. I'll come back. I'll bring it back next time.
That would be nice, yeah.
But yeah, that moment. When is that moment? I have to think about it more, because that's a good thing to think about.
So, in Fabris, we have measure and tempo.
Mm-hmm.
I think in EI it was one thing together.
Yeah.
Yeah. And those two things in Fabris happen at the same time, constantly. Your measure is the distance between you, but the tempo is the time it takes for you to close that distance.
Mm-hmm.
But by each step, or by each sword rotation. So you can do multiple tempos at once.
Oh.
The thing is, though, each one takes a certain amount of time to accomplish. So, if in the middle of a tempo, you see an opportunity to get in between their timing and their guard, you've won the match. Because if they have to do this big sweep, depending on where my blade is, if we're fencing, and you're guarding me because your sword is in that hand, and you do a big, like, rounding sweep trying to get my blade. Yeah, it's you can see it, but like if you do it slower, once I see the opening,
Yeah.
and it's just a moment within your tempo. So what I'm doing there is called contra tempo, which is in between yours.
Yeah. I remember reading about this.
Yes.
Oh, it's been so long. Oh.
Yes, and that's the thing that's like, once you get a sense of that, it does not matter how strong they are, how much taller they are than you, how much faster they are than you. If you can read their tempo, you can beat them. Yeah.
I like that. That's a lot like... Yeah. I love martial arts. I wonder, because you mentioned about when Tim brought musicians. Because whenever you talk about it, it sounds really musical. I'm wondering how music affects people's fencing.
So I will speak to my personal effects, because he had it going in the one tournament that I fought. In the beginning, it was like 3 groups of 8 to 10 fencers, and we would do what's called round robin, which is everyone pairs up with each person in that circle and fences them once. And we do like sudden death, like actual duel format. So if you get stabbed in the head or the body, the match is over.
You're out.
You are dead. You would have died historically.
You're lost.
And so 3 points goes to that winner. But if before you get stabbed in the head, you manage to stab in the leg and in the hand, you get 2 points because you get 1 point for each extremity.
Alright.
There are rules within it. But for that round robin, all they played, it was just 2 cellists. And it was the most peaceful thing I had ever experienced, which was hilarious in the fact that it was a fencing tournament.
Brilliant.
But everyone was so calm. Everyone was so happy to be there and just very polite. Like, no tempers were flaring, but like everyone was super engaged in everything happening. And then in the finals, they busted out a drum. And Troy, the second I heard that drum, I couldn't calm down. My heart rate went from like 2. And I just couldn't get it under control once I heard that drum. It does affect people. Tim will get angry. Not angry. I've never seen Tim angry. But I can kind of see sometimes he gets annoyed at whenever there's loud music playing, because if it's like metal or really like amp you up music, it affects you in the bout. Tim will call the cross, stop going so hard, stop flying at each other, slow down, fence with control, because anyone can go out there and flail and get a kill. But if you're able to stand there and be calm and see exactly what your opponent's doing, you're going to survive hundreds of duels.
Yeah. Yeah. Huh.
So for me, music affects me.
That's interesting. It makes sense.
Even so much so, I'm realizing I do not listen to music with words when I'm going to class. Because the lyrics will get me out of focus.
Interesting.
Yeah, it has to be instrumental. So I usually listen to classical or any like electronic just beat.
That's cool.
Closing thoughts or statements?
No, I think it was a really good closing. The timing one was a really good closing statement. I appreciate that. I'm gonna think on that more and bring it back next time. I appreciate that.
Because just as a personal curiosity, I just want to see how similar that is, because that is one thing that I'm like, that is the exact same. It's the exact same thing, just a different weapon.
It is. It's just the similarities. Well, thank y'all for joining us. Appreciate it. Stay tuned for next time. We want to have guests on. We want to have your friend Pierce. I want to have.
If you are a swordsman or sword practitioner, to be inclusive of all, hit us up.
Drop a comment.
Send us some footage. We'll see if we think. All right, yeah, this guy actually knows something.
We'll deem if you're worthy to come in and talk to us. But yeah, no, we could have them call in.
That would be really cool.
Thank you.
Good night.